Hello, I'm the Theorizer, and after the recent passing of Gene Wilder, I was lured back to watching Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Not the Tim Burton 2005 one, I'm talking the original classic derived from Roald Dahl's book. I have always looked at this film and wondered, what exactly goes through his head as all of the children are altered and hurt around him? I sort of diagnosed him with bipolar, but I now see that I needed more attributes for an accurate diagnosis. And while this theory still remains as one of the robot-voiced, suddenly popular analyses of my channel, there's clearly more to this mystical misfit, his plan. What exactly is it? And by that, I mean the parts we aren't told. And I'm not going to accept the theory that the children are made into chocolate. That's a bit ridiculous even for me. What I will do, though, is summarize his plans into a huge list to organize what this madman has on his agenda. But first, we need to address a very interesting point. Granted, many people have noticed this point over the years, and you've probably heard of it yourself. After Augustus Gloop is taken by the pipe, the boat has just barely enough seats for the people left. No room for Augustus and his mother. Same goes for the Wonka Wash. Barely enough seats for the 5 people left. Elevator? Definitely no space for all 11 people. So did Willy Wonka actually know that the kids were going to disappear? Well, if you still didn't know, yes, he did. We are told that his plan was to bring kids to his factory to turn the kindest one into a master chocolatier and grant them his factory. He had an employee pose as Slugworth, a competing chocolatier. This phony Slugworth was to ask each ticket receiver for an everlasting gobstopper. The child who was nicest and didn't give it to Slugworth was awarded a factory, and the children who were selfish were taught a lesson about their rudeness, and their parents were taught to become more strict. Fairly standard plan. He is doing as the saying goes, and is killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only does he help bratty kids and parents become kind and strict, but he finds a perfect person to give his factory to. Although, you know, if you're dealing with me, you'll be guaranteed that there's more to it. And I will repeat myself, I don't believe he is turning kids into chocolate like other people have said. He just isn't that kind of person. He even admits that they'll be alright, and he wouldn't have taught them all a lesson just to kill them. But I have a different idea, a more intricate and possibly even creepy idea. Let's figure out his whole plan. Let's start with the Slugworth imposter. What exactly is his purpose? Well, that's obvious. It was stated that he was there to test each kid's loyalty to Wonka, their generosity, willpower, and kindness, all that sweet stuff. But what I'm asking is, what's his real purpose? What else does he do? We see that in the chocolate factory, there is lots of chocolate, clearly, but there's also many rooms that have absolutely nothing to do with chocolate, and simply don't fit at all. They're very oddly specific to each kid. And out of the likely tens to hundreds of rooms in the factory, he takes them to those few in particular. It's clear he knows what will occur. He takes Augustus to a room entirely composed of edible sweets, takes Violet to a room where he's developing amazing gum, takes Veruca to an irresistible room where she'll want it all, and takes Mike to a room that has entirely to do with televisions. How inexplicably bizarre. This is crazy. How does Wonka know what each kid wants? Sure, you could argue that he looked at them all when they entered and took them to rooms specific to their stereotype, but it's far too strange to have rooms like those in the first place. He allows them to roam free, all by themselves, but it's clear that he knows what will happen. So how does he know what each kid wants before they even get there? Well, what we need to assume next makes everything slightly chilling. Here's my theory. You might find this obvious, or perhaps it will blow your mind, maybe it'll keep you neutral, I don't know. But I'm fairly certain that Willy Wonka was spying on these kids. Hear me out. We'll call this man Mr. Wilkinson, as that is his real name. Wilkinson suddenly appears right after each kid wins. He is doing something nearby, right before he approaches them. He was eating at the same restaurant as Augustus Gloop, right as he found the golden ticket. He brings in a box of candy bars to the Salted Peanuts factory, which ultimately leads to Veruca's victory. Hey, see what I did there? Salted? Okay, I apologize for my horrible contribution to society, but what is more is that he casually washes a car behind Violet Beauregard right after she wins, and he is standing right near Mike TV, posing as a reporter, as Mike wins. He was there to assure these brats victories. He spies on the most bratty of brats, approved by Wonka, and gives them tickets. Probability itself makes the whole thing improbable. 4 rude kids, all similar. This is out of the world's billions of people, so all of the winners being kids lowers chances greatly. The fact that they are all this rude and cruel also lowers the chances of the tickets actually being random. The world thought that all of this was random and that they could have won, but in reality, they had no chance. It was rigged. I mean, look at this man. He created a probability machine that would tell him the exact location of the tickets, but it didn't tell him the truth. What a peculiar thing to include, filmmakers. Now to Charlie, where things get difficult. How does Charlie receive a winning bar? Charlie finds a coin in a drain and buys a chocolate bar with it. He's about to leave, but then decides to go back and purchase another. This second purchase is the chocolate bar containing the golden ticket. How was it assured that Charlie received a ticket here? Wilkinson. We see him one scene later, indicating that, like the rest, he was recently there. He monitored the winning chocolate bar, assuring Charlie's victory. Also, notice how the Candyman talks about hiding tickets, and then immediately goes to grab a chocolate bar of his own choice. And being a Candyman, he'd have direct affiliation with the factory down the street, or in the least, Slugworth. And the way that this shot lingers on the Candyman after Charlie leaves, showing him continue to look at him, so sneaky. But the big question is why? Why Charlie, a nice boy compared to all of the vicious and brutal kids? Something massive to consider is the timing. The craziest thing in the whole movie is the timing. Wonka opens his factory only a few days after Charlie longs for its insides. How strange. How perfectly specific. Wonka also says how he needs a successor, someone to take on the factory after he passes away. So compiling all of this together, we have our answer. Needing a successor, Wonka sent out Wilkinson to find the perfect child. Charlie, a poor boy that lived down the street, was a perfect fit for a successor. Pure, innocent, kind, fun, chocolate-loving, and perfect for the job. So to keep suspicion down regarding a single boy, Wonka continues to invite 4 more kids into the factory, in hopes that Charlie would pass his tests, and the rest would flounder. Wilkinson finds 4 of the most bratty kids in the world, 4 kids that could any day lose to Charlie in a contest of kindness, loyalty, and most importantly, selflessness. Wonka creates objects and rooms specific to each of the 4 brats to further ensure that they will indeed fall for the traps. Notice how there's no room specific to Charlie, no room at all. And if you're going to say, oh, but what about the bubble room? Well, the bubble room wasn't intended to trick Charlie. It was a test, not a child trap. Wonka just passes right through.
Now play.
Through that bubble room. This is completely the opposite from what he does in the other rooms. He waits there, and waits, and waits, until the kid that room is designed for engages in their terrible actions, and this teaches them, and their parents, a thing or two about selflessness and parenting. Also, Wonka repeatedly acts strange around Charlie, almost like he's a secondary character to him. He makes him sign the contract last, he pauses and waits to give Charlie a gobstopper last.
1 for you, and 1 for you, and 1 for you.
Yeah, what about Charlie?
And 1 for Charlie.
And he speaks slightly differently to him. He always keeps him at the end of the line and away from the spotlight of the other kids. The bubble room is a strategically placed test. It was a room he knew Charlie would use, which would break the contract, and this would force Charlie into the final position of giving up the gobstopper or not. A final test passed. Notice how Wonka just assumes that they used the bubble room. In the Golden Goose scene, he couldn't have had any idea that they even used the room, and he just acts like they never left the group. How odd. And when Charlie wins, he says he knew Charlie would. 4 bratty kids, 1 kind kid. Such odd probabilities. Wilkinson, the Slugworth imposter. The contract, rehearsed songs, minimal vehicle space, strategically placed bubble room, oddly large pipes fit for a fatty, lingering shots, timing, chronically apathetic tour guide, intelligent mastermind, succession, extremist parenting tips, all of it. This whole thing was to get Charlie to win. He even says at the end how he's sorry for putting him through all of it. I'm not too sure if all of you think this is obvious or not, but I think it's pretty cool. I'm doing this to hopefully put an end to many questions people still have. I suppose this video was just more or less to display as much evidence as I could to show why this almost certainly is the case, and I hope you at least a little bit enjoyed this in-depth analysis of logic, shots, and timing. So, in summarization, Wonka was killing 3 birds with 1 stone. First bird, saving the futures of these brats by teaching them and their parents lessons. Second bird, saving a poor boy by turning his life upside down. And third bird, a successor. Wonka needed a replacement, and via an extensive process, he succeeded in helping the lives of many people. Brilliant. I hope you learned something, and until next time, I'm the Theorizer.